Test, test, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this is recording me now. I'm recording my monitor. I'm going to start sharing. No, I'm not doing that. Share my screen. Okay, so here we are. Now, I wanted to show you guys Maya, and I wanted to show you the project I'm doing with my kids in DDA2 in Maya. And this is the project that we just finished in DDA2, which is all 3D modeling. And we've been working on this since probably the second day of school, okay? That's how long this takes. Here we go. Now, I did this one, but that's what they're doing. And here is the actual animation in Maya. This is what Maya looks like. You can see it looks really different than 3D Max. Here's the rocket doing its thing. This is one camera looking at it from this angle. It's just one camera. The other camera is here. Let me go back to the beginning to see it. Here's the other camera. And then we have another camera that's looking at it from this angle, which is following it from the rear. And another camera that's looking at it from this angle, which is from the front. But anyway, to make a long story short, this is what Maya looks like. So be thankful you're working in 3D Max, because doesn't this look exceedingly complicated to you compared to 3D Max?
Yes.
I mean, it just does to me. When I open it up, I'm like, oh my God, how am I ever going to learn to use this thing?
Are those layers on the left-hand side, or is that history, or what's
This is history. This is your history of operations that are actually on this object right here. And you're supposed to delete your history, but when I try to delete my history on this one, see, it doesn't delete. So remember what?
I apologize.
No.
How do you know how many cameras you need for this particular scene?
I just chose those camera angles because I thought they would be interesting. That's
okay.
all. And I wanted to have multiple. Remember how I showed you the video of the girl in the lightsaber fighting the TIE fighter? I mean, you need multiple. Yeah. You need multiple camera shots and angles to tell the story. So it just makes it more interesting. So plus, you can't really see the whole thing happening without multiple cameras here. You just can't.
Okay.
The only way you would be able to see it is to look at it from an angle like this. Stop. Oops. Which, you know, like this, which would not be very interesting. See, because you really can't see all the things happening, right?
Mm.
Like you can see, but you're so far away from the rocket that you can't see the shaking effect and the whole bit. Now, I want to show you something here. You see this smoke here?
Yeah.
This is what's called a particle effect. So what's happening here is that there's a piece of geometry on the rocket that is emitting other geometry, and that geometry has on it a texture which makes it look like smoke. And then it's programmed such that it behaves in a certain way based on physical properties and stuff. This cloud is also a particle system. These other clouds in the background here is just a texture. This is a skybox. And here, this path is the motion path that the rocket is bound to. So, anyway, so I want to tell you, like I told you, my kids, my DDA2 kids have spent, they've been working on this since the second day of school. So, you know, a thing of this quality just takes a lot of time. And this tutorial, this project was a Maya Learning Channel project that I found that takes them through just about everything they're supposed to learn in, here it is right here. It starts with this one. And it goes, there's 10 videos. And it's called Maya 101. So it's intro, then you make the rocket.
When you think of technical support, what comes to mind? Do you imagine being placed on hold for the
rocket?
And then he goes through, he talks a little bit about animation, and then he talks about how to animate the rocket, and then he talks about particle effects and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so like I said, you can find all sorts of really great stuff. And look, I didn't have anything that I did myself for Maya. Remember, I just started using Maya. I just started, like, I messed around with it a little bit this summer, but you know, when I got to school in August, I had this brand new lab full of IMAX and Maya, and I didn't have anything that I normally use in 3D modeling, right? So I went here and I found this project and I said, you know, this is what my kids are going to do. And while they were doing it, I did it with them. Now, why did I do that? I did that because I need to understand what things they might find confusing and what the problems they might run into would be and how to fix them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep.
Does 3ds Max have 3ds Max 101 like Maya?
Well, let's see. 3D Max. They have a learning channel too. And it is right here. And let's see, updates. Playlists. Getting started with 3D Max. Learning 3D Max, right here.
Okay.
This playlist right here. Now, what exactly you're doing in here, I don't know, because, you know, I haven't done this, but there is stuff there.
Okay. Maya seems to teach from very basic, take students through a gradual process.
Yeah.
They're learning.
Yeah. But I'm here to tell you that 3D Max is a lot easier to use than Maya. A lot. So.
Okay. So I'm grateful that I'm still using 3ds Max.
Yeah. Now, my star student that I told you about who's working at UCLA, when she was in my class and she learned 3D Max, and then she went off to summer camp where they were doing an animation. She went off to like a summer like animation camp, and they used Maya there. And she liked Maya better. So when she came back to my class, she wanted to use Maya. So I let her. I mean, what do I care, right? She's still doing the things she's supposed to be doing. And I had both. So I let her use Maya. And she likes Maya better. And maybe I'll end up liking Maya better. I don't know. So far I don't. But Maybe just because I'm so used to using 3D Max. But she only had like a semester, she only had like a semester of 3D Max before she decided she liked Maya better. I've had like, 15 years, so it's been a while. I have a lot more to overcome, I guess. So, so let me quit this, save it and quit it. And we'll bring back up the castle project and move on. Did I talk to you guys about the PBMs and your flexibility that you have in the PBMs last time?
I think you did. You said we have some freedom.
Yes, you do. You do. So you don't have to, you don't have to have them do that animated car video, for example, in 3D Max. They can do something as long as they're creating an animated scene. That's all that, it can be whatever you want it to be. So you could have them do the castle and just have them do a camera movement with the castle. I'll show you how to do that today. Okay. So let's open up the castle project. This is where we left off last week. Now, I am so used to there you go. I'm so used to Maya that I'm having to remind myself what the scene navigation buttons are. So give me a second. All right, so this is where I left off the other day, and what I was telling you is that your kids can actually create a castle by just using, a few pieces. So another thing that they might want to do, and remember you can hold down Shift and move an object which will copy it. All right. You can also group objects. So instead of doing what I'm doing here, right, I could take all three of these, right, and I could group them under group here. And I could name this wall 01. And then it appears over here in my Scene Explorer. See it right here? Wall 01 as a group. I can toggle its visibility as well as a group. And over here in the Scene Explorer, I can freeze objects. Do you see these little snowflakes? I can freeze that whole group. See how it grayed out? I can't select it anymore. It's frozen. Now this is very convenient to be able to freeze objects because sometimes, you don't want to move an object, right? You want it to stay in place. You don't want to accidentally move it. So I can take this group and I can rotate it. Remember, I can hold down Shift and rotate it 90 degrees. And create a copy very easily. And remember our shortcuts for the what am I talking about? Our shortcuts for switching transformation tools. And if you remember what they are, does anybody remember what they are? Nobody?
Are you talking about QWER?
Yes, I am. Excellent,
Yeah.
Tina.
Yeah, scale group.
You got
That was my only education, I remember most all the YouTube videos.
You you get a virtual piece of chocolate.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Maya has this really great feature where you can you can focus on an object. 3D Max doesn't have that. So like and this is something that Unreal Engine has as well. If you have an object selected and you hit F on the keyboard, it zooms in on that object and then the scene will rotate around that object as you move your view. So it's very, very useful. So you can see pretty quickly I've created, a castle courtyard, right? Right? Now, let's make a tower, shall we? Should we make a square tower or a round tower? Let's make a round tower. So to make a round tower, I would start with a cylinder. And I would create a cylinder like so. And because I don't want all my other stuff in the way here, I'm just going to work on this tower right now. I'm going to hide everything else. I'm going to show you how to do that. The way you hide things is you right-click to bring up the quad menu. Did we talk about the quad menu at all last time? No?
Yes.
I think I just briefly mentioned it. Okay, but remember you have all your toolbar here, you have your main menu here, right? We have our keyboard shortcuts. We have the command panel over here. We have the modeling ribbon. Remember this thing? Remember? With all the modeling tools that we have. All these things. Anyway, when you right-click in 3D Max, you bring up this thing right where your cursor is called the quad menu. And it's called the quad menu because it has 4 quadrants, right? This one, this one, this one, and this one, right? Now, here's the cool thing about the quad menu. It's customizable. You can put whatever you want in these things, all right? Don't ask me how to do it because I don't remember. And, have I ever customized it? Yes. Do you really need to customize it? Not really. Not really. Because a lot of the things that you can do here are also up here, right? And in here sometimes, and in here sometimes, depending on what you're doing. So this is really useful because, as I said last time, you want to avoid moving your cursor back and forth and around the screen as much as possible. You want to, that just takes time. It's also bad on your wrist. So I teach my kids about the quad menu pretty early. Now, in the quad menu right now, because I'm not doing anything except selecting an object, I have these choices. And they are freeze selection. I had that selected though. Freeze selection, unfreeze all. See, I could freeze that just like I froze it before over here, right? Unfreeze all. I can also hide things. I can unhide things and hide things. I can hide the selected object or I can hide everything else. And then I can unhide everything or I can unhide only specific things. So, and then I can change my state set. I don't know what state sets are. I've never used them. I can show a motion path, and that's important in animation. I can also change my transformation tool here. Remember, move, rotate, scale, which is on our keyboard as well. I can also change it here. I can clone objects. I can bring up the object properties. This is the object properties for this cylinder. And these can be important at times. For example, in here, I can uncheck this box and make that object not renderable, so that when I render the scene, now this object will not appear in the scene, for example. That could be useful. Some of these other things I'll show in here as well eventually. I can also change the visibility of it. I can just dial this down. I can change it to like 0.5 if I want to. And if I click OK, you can see now it's sort of visible, right? See? It's semi-transparent because in the object properties, I made its visibility 0.5. So, but what I want to do right now is just hide everything else in my scene. So I'm going to hide unselected, and that hides everything else. I also want to center this object in 3D space because when you're working on an object in 3D Max, it's always preferable to have it centered for various reasons. I can always move it back into place later. So to center it on its pivot point, I'm going to come down here to the XYZ coordinates below the timeline. Remember this? And I'm going to right click on each one of these spinners, and that zeroes it out. And that puts it right on the center of the grid. So it's now centered. So let's make a tower out of this. So the first thing is, this is kind of boring. I think that I might want it to be shaped differently. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to the Modify tab in the command panel here. Remember the command panel over here on the right? And here are this cylinder's parameters. Right now, it has 5 height segments and 1 cap segment and 18 sides. I don't want it to have 5 height segments because I want to put height segments on it that I want to put on it for what I want to do. So I'm going to zero that out by right-clicking on it. See, those disappeared, right? I think I want to give it a few more sides. Watch what happens when I change this number to 30. See? Do you see what that did? It gave me more sides. Now, you don't necessarily need more sides because the computer will smooth it out for you anyway by using the shading. But I just wanted to show you that. Cap segments are segments on the top. Right now it's got 1. If I change that to 2, see, I have another cap segment here. I'm going to leave that on there because I might want that later. All right? Actually, you know what? I don't know. I can't imagine why I would want that, so I'm going to get rid of that. All right. So now let's make this look more interesting. First thing I think I want to do to it is sort of flare it out at the bottom. I want to have it kind of taper up a little bit. So I can do that a couple of ways. I can add and edit poly to the modifier stack. And then I can use the vertices right here. See, vertices, edges, borders, polygons, and element. I'm going to use vertices. I'm going to click right here. And I'm going to drag a marquee selection box around the bottom, so I've selected all these bottom vertices here, see? Then I'm going to use the scale tool to uniformly scale these out. And to uniformly scale them, I'm going to get right in the middle of my scale gizmo here. Not here, not here, not here, but right in the middle. And I'm going to scale that out. So see, now it tapers out at the bottom. Does that make sense? That's easy to understand, right? Another thing I could do to make it taper differently is I can delete this edit poly modifier. I can give it those height segments back, give it a bunch of them, and then I can add a modifier to it and let it taper it for me. That modifier is, I think, called taper. Yep. And here is the taper modifier, and see, the taper modifier will do this as well, right? However, a cool thing about the taper modifier is that I can also add a curve to it. Check that out. Check that out. Isn't that cool? Does everybody understand how I did that?
Yes, so it's almost like you're turning a cylinder into a piece of art.
Yes, this process of using modifiers here to let the computer do things for you like this is called parametric modeling. Parametric. Now, the other type of modeling is called surface modeling, which is when we use vertices, edges, and polygons, right? Now listen to me when I tell you this. I could do this right here. I could do this effect by hand if I wanted to. But the computer can do it a lot better than I can, right? So what a lot of people will do is they'll add a modifier like this first, and then they'll go off and they'll build on the modifier later. Does that make sense? I'll show you what I mean in just a minute. But you see this orange box right here? This is called the Modifier Gizmo. If I open up the modifier here in the modifier stack, like so, there's the gizmo. See it? If I select that gizmo, I can now move that gizmo and scale it and rotate it. See what I've just done? And I'm scaling the transform gizmo and getting different effects. You see that? I can also just move it to get a different effect as well. See? Does that make sense?
Mr. Flint, how do you get the white brackets around the shape, around this object?
These brackets?
Yes, the white one.
The white ones, that just comes around whatever you have selected. That is called the bounding box.
The bounding box.
Mm-hmm.
When I was practicing, I didn't see the bounding box. I thought.
Okay, hang on a second.
Okay.
There is a way to disable the bounding box. I'm trying to remember what it is. It might be in here.
Or you don't have to disable it. I just didn't know how to get to that.
No, but I mean, perhaps it became disabled by accident. I was trying to show you how to turn it on and off so you could turn it back on. Because sometimes you don't want the bounding box. You know, sometimes it gets in the way of what you're trying to, sometimes it gets in the way of what you're trying to see. Well, I'll just have to find that later. I'll show you all how to do that after lunch. I just got to remember how to do it. But there is a way to disable this. So if this ever disappears, it's been disabled somehow. And it might be, no. And there might be a keyboard shortcut for disabling that you accidentally pushed, you know. But there is a way to disable this. So, okay, so I've been moving this gizmo around to try and get different effects, right? But I think I just like it just like this. Now, I have the gizmo selected, correct? But I can't select anything else until I deselect the gizmo by selecting the modifier again and closing it. See, now I have the object selected again, see? Not the gizmo. Sometimes when your kids will start doing this kind of thing with the gizmo, they forget that they have to select the modifier again to start moving stuff again. Does that make sense? Now, you can add all sorts of things, all sorts of other modifiers onto this if you wanted to, and just get all sorts of different effects. I encourage you to play around with some of these. A project that Mr. Holden and I used to do is we used to do what's called a parametric skyscraper. And after the kids understand modeling a little bit, we'd have them make a city using this plugin called Greeble. And then we would have them make one skyscraper using parametric modeling like I'm doing here. And it's really easy to make a skyscraper, right? You just make a cylinder or a square and add a modifier to it and maybe extrude a few things and boom, you got a skyscraper, right? Like I could make this a skyscraper right now. I could add an edit poly modifier to the top of the stack here. Go to polygon mode. Grab all of these polygons here. I have all of them selected except for the top and the bottom. I'm going to zoom in on this because what I'm going to do now is make windows. I'm going to right click. See, now the quad menu has now changed. Do you see this? I've still got these display things and these other things that I had before, but I've got some new stuff over here because I'm in polygon mode in surface modeling mode, right? So now I've got some new choices over here. I've got some poly modeling operations in here like bevel, which is what I want. Anytime you see a little square next to a menu item or a poly modeling or any kind of modeling operation, that means that it has, this is the options box. So when you click that, it brings up this little floating menu thing here. See this? Now in here, I can hover over this spinner that's on the side here, and I can click and drag, and see I'm now beveling my object. I can do the same thing here, but I'm not doing anything. I can also change the mode here. Right now it's on group. I want it to be by polygon. So I'm going to click that, and now I'm going to start messing with these spinners. So this is the extrusion. See, it's extruding them inward by polygon. And this is the bevel. And what have I done now? I've made windows. Once I get this like I want, all I do is click the checkbox. And check it out. I have a skyscraper. How easy was that, right? Piece of cake. Dun, dun, dun. And getting back to where I was is just as easy as undoing a couple of times. and deleting the modifier. Now I'm back where I was. Now, I am making a castle tower, not a skyscraper, correct? So I want this to taper up like this. So I'm going to now permanently apply this modifier. But before I do, I want to show you something. I'm going to make another cylinder real quick. And I'm going to apply the taper modifier to it. But this time, I am going to just put 3 height segments on it. And I'm going to find that taper modifier again. And I'm going to apply it. Now see, it works pretty good, right? But watch when I try to curve it. You see how the curve is not as smooth? You see that? That's because it only has 3 height segments. This one has many height segments, so it's smoother. It's just like having more points on a curve will make the curve smoother, correct? Does that make sense? Yeah? Let me delete this and give this 1 height segment. Or actually, let me give it no height segments. And apply that again. It'll still taper, but guess what? It ain't gonna curve at all. You see that? Why is it not curving?
It didn't have segments.
Right. It didn't have any segments on which to curve, did it? There are no points on the curve. So sometimes when you apply a modifier and it doesn't work, you need to make sure that you have enough geometry for it to work on. Does that make sense? You got to have enough edges to make the modifier work. And your kids will sometimes, they'll sometimes create a shape and try to add a modifier to it and it won't work. And it's because they just don't have enough geometry for it to act on. So that's why I wanted to demonstrate that to you. All right, so I'm going to delete that one. So here's my castle tower. I'm going to now start surface modeling this. And I don't need this modifier anymore, but I want to keep its effect. All right? So to do that, I'm just going to simply right-click and bring up that quad menu again. Notice it's different now, right? I'm not surface modeling anymore. But I'm going to permanently apply this taper modifier by converting this to an editable poly. You see this down at the bottom? Convert to editable poly. Notice the modifier has now disappeared, and the only thing in the modifier stack is editable poly. Got that? So now I can begin to do different things to this. I think at the very top here, I want this part of the castle, the tower, to come out so that there's a place for people to, be up here. So I'm going to go to polygon mode, and I'm going to grab these top polygons here. Oops. Whoa, stop. See, I keep pushing the wrong buttons. And I'm going to move them up a little bit. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave them right there, and I'm going to extrude them outwards. So I'm going to zoom in some, and I'm going to right-click and bring up that quad menu, and I'm going to select Extrude, but I'm going to select the Extrude options here. And you can see that that tried to extrude my thing. If I click and drag this, you can see that it's doing something, but it's not doing what I want, right? And you can see it's just not doing what I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check the modes here by clicking this little top thing, and I want it to extrude by local normal. Now it's doing what I want to do, see? So I'm going to drag this out a little bit. And then I'm going to hit check. Now you can also extrude by polygon. Watch what happens when I do that. Check that out. It's kind of cool. But I want to extrude by local normal. And then I'm going to hit the checkbox. And then I'm going to take all of this and move it up. If I just click and drag up now, I leave that behind. See, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to hold down Control and add to my selection here. And I'm going to pull all of this up like so. And now I have a nice, you know, kind of tower shape here already. Another thing I could do is I could take, oh, I don't know. I don't know how many of these I would do. I would have to sort of calculate it. But I could take these here and I could right click and extrude them downwards. Try a different sort of extrusion. And then I could pull them down like this and then pull them in like that. That didn't look very good. Okay, notice how do you see how my move gizmo is all out of whack here? And it's making it difficult for me to move this where I want because I just want to move this straight back to here. Y'all see that? I need to switch to local coordinates here. To do that, I come up right here in the toolbar, right here where it says View, and I switch to local. And now that gives me not what I want either, so I'm going to try screen. That's no better. Gimbal. Still not working. So you know what? I'm going to abandon that, but I'm going to try something else here. Watch this. This is a good one. If I select, oop, my bad. Hold down Control and select all 4 of these. I hope this works. I can use the bridge command, I hope, to create polygons between here and here. Let's see if this works. The bridge command can also be found over here in the command panel. It's right here, see, bridge. And if I click it, it doesn't work. It still doesn't work. What I'm trying to do is create sort of a reinforcement thing down here, you know. You know what I probably know what it looks like if you saw it. But sometimes, you know, I would have to puzzle this out and try to figure out how it works. I'm not going to do that right now. Let me see if I can do this. All right, so I think that what I'm going to do is take I'm going to switch to vertex mode and take these and pull them up like that. Maybe take these, pull them up like that. I don't know if I like that, but, you know, I could do something like that to add some detail, right? If I were going to do that, what I would do before I did that is I would delete this polygon, delete these two polygons here, and then I would weld these vertices to these. And to do that, you can right-click, bring up the quad menu, and select Target Weld. And then you can grab this and click, see the little dotted line, and click on the one you want to weld to. So now this is all part of the same mesh, and I can just take this and pull that up like that. So maybe I would do that and add some detail, but I don't know if you want to do that with your kids or not. That's a little complex. All right, so we have this tower shape here. We can extrude some windows in the top here. I can extrude a door down here in the bottom if I want to. I think I'm going to grab maybe these polygons here and extrude them outward. And I'm just going to let them extrude however they want to and hit check, because what I'm going to do is pull them out like this anyway and push them down on the ground. And then I'm going to rotate them a little bit, but actually what I want to do is flatten these out. See how it's curved? I don't want that to be curved. I want it to be flat. So I'm going to get my scale tool, and I'm going to switch to an orthographic view, if I can find one. Yes. And I'm going to use the scale in one axis here. Watch what happens to these polygons when I do this. See how they got flat? Whoops. But I just scaled them in one axis. Now when I switch back to perspective view, you can see that they're nice and scaled. My door is still a little crooked, but, you know, I could probably move it over a little bit or something. Push it back a little bit. All right, whatever. That's becoming more problematic than it's worth. So I want to make some windows here. I'm going to go to edge mode. I'm going to double click on these edges here, hold down Control, and select them all, because I'm going to get rid of them because I want to put edges in that I want in. I don't want these edges. So I'm going to right click and select Remove. And that removes those edges. You can't just delete them. If I push delete on my keyboard, see, it deletes the whole thing. If I select remove, it removes it. But if I go to vertex mode, you see it left those vertices behind. You see that? We don't want that either. So what I need to do is when I select remove, I need to hold down Control. When I do that, that also gets rid of the vertices as well. Okay, so I'm going to make some windows on this tower. So I need one edge now. I still need some edges, but I just need one. So I'm going to put an edge right in the center here. I'm still in edge mode, so I'm going to select right through the center here, just like this. So I just selected those edges, those parallel edges. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to select Connect. And that gives me one edge right in the middle. And now I want to split this edge so I have it evenly spaced from here to here so I can create a window, and you'll see what I mean in just a minute. So to do that, I'm going to use Chamfer. I'm going to right click and select Chamfer. And that brings up this little tool. When I hover over the edge I want to chamfer, I can click and drag and create and split that edge. And there you go. I right click to turn off. Oops. What the heck? And notice here is the tool is still on. I got to turn it off. Actually, I'm just going to switch to my move tool. There we go. And then now I'm going to select some polygons. And again, I don't know how evenly spaced this is going to be. That's not really the point. I would count them and try to evenly space them if I were doing this for real. But I'm just trying to do it quickly. So now I'm going to extrude. I'm going to bevel and extrude these inward. So I'm going to right click and select bevel. I'm going to bring up the options. I'm going to select local normal. And I'm going to right click on the spinners to zero them out, and I'm going to do what I did with the skyscraper. I'm going to bring these in, and then I'm going to bevel them just a little tiny bit. There we go. And there you go. Now we have some windows in our tower. Whoa. And I hate this door. Absolutely hate it. I'm going to get rid of that. But what I'm going to do next is put a roof on this thing. To put a roof on it, I'm going to use a cone. So I'm going to go back to my Create tab now. And we're going to create a cone. I'm going to click and drag. Drag up. Click again, drag, click, and create a cone. Now, I'm going to put this cone on top of my castle, like so. Now you can see that I can sit here and do this all day long if I want to. I mean, it just takes a long time. But I can also use the Align tool, which is right here. If I click it and turn it on and click the other object, it will align it in all three axes, or just two axes that I want, right? However you want to do that. But see, that centered it perfectly on that cylinder. All I got to do now is move it up. All right, that's the Align tool right here. There's a keyboard shortcut for that as well, but I won't go into that right now. I like this, but I think it needs to overhang the top of the tower more. So I'm going to go to the Modify tab for my cone, and I'm going to change radius 1 to overhang a little bit more. I'm also going to change, I think, the height just a bit. And I'm going to add some height segments. And the reason I'm going to add some height segments is because I'm going to use that taper modifier again. And the reason I'm going to use the taper modifier again is because I can play around with how this thing looks. Check that out. Doesn't that look better than just a plain old cone? And then I can also, since it shrunk a little bit now, no, I like that. The base kind of is now looking a little too big, so I'm going to get my scale tool. And I'm going to scale only in the X and Y axes, and that just makes it thinner at the base, but not taller. If I were to scale in the middle, it would make it smaller in all directions. But I just wanted to scale it here to make the base, to make the diameter smaller. I could also make it a little taller by scaling up this way. And then I could come over here to the taper modifier and play around with that a little more. Now to fix this door, which I absolutely hate, all I got to do is grab these polygons that I created by extruding, and I'm holding down Control and clicking on each one of them to add to my selection. I'm going to delete them, and I think I'm going to create a door out of this. So what I'm going to do is select the edges around this door. I'm in edge mode now, and I'm just selecting the edges. I'm holding down Control. I'm just selecting the edges around the door here, and I'm going to extrude these inward. I'm going to extrude these edges inward. I can use the actual extrude command, or I can just use my move tool, and as long as I hold down shift, I'm creating new polygons. See, that's kind of cool. But I've still got the same problem. Now I think it's because of where I selected the polygons. I should have selected them right, on along an X or a Y axis. I should have selected them right here. But this will be easier to fix than a bunch of polygons. See here, I can just grab these edges here. And move them over a little bit. Whoop. And move them over a little bit to straighten that out. I can grab these. So I can grab these vertices here. Move them over a little bit. So now I have a doorway. To get rid of this hole I have here, I can select these edges on this side and these edges on this side and bridge them, I think. Let's try that. Yep. But now I've got a problem here, but I can fix that later. So there you go, a tower. Now I can unhide the rest of my castle. Right click, unhide all, and there you go. Now I can put this, I can select both objects and put this right there. So, any questions about that?
How are you moving your view around? When I'm trying it, I have to go up to the box and grab it and move it around. But is there a shortcut you're using or a key that you're holding down to?
Yes, there is.
Get all these angles?
Yes. If you select an object, okay, which is better than just trying to move your view, and you hold down Alt, middle mouse button, that rotates around that selected object. Like that. Alt, middle mouse button. If you just push your middle mouse button, that pans your scene up and down, left and right. If you hold down Control, Alt, middle mouse button, that zooms. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I teach that to the kids first day when they create something. I teach that to them right away. So it's lunchtime. So I think when we come back from lunch, I'm going to show you guys how to put some textures on these things, because creating more objects is just as simple as trying to, you can create square towers. You can create stairs. All the videos that Mr. Holden has on my website, which is, again, HPC Game Dev. I'm going to drop the link in chat again. And this is the link for this is the link for the 3D modeling and animation page. All right. And this has all of these tutorials right here. Here's the castle thing right here. If you click on it, don't worry about the formatting. I'll fix that. But the basic parts is what we've been doing. Walls, towers, textures, which I'm getting ready to do, doors, stairs, all these things. These are all things that you can make to build your castle. Okay? And then there's other tutorials here if you want to make a lantern to hang on your castle. Here's one if you want to make banners that actually wave and stuff in the wind and flags. There's a tutorial about that. There's a tutorial about how to make rocks, which is exceedingly easy. And then I have a tutorial about how to actually composite it into a scene using Photoshop. And as I said before, this is the one that I did. That's my 3D Max model composited into Photoshop, composited into this photograph using Photoshop. Okay? See you in an hour.
All right, I'm going to have to leave for this afternoon session.
Okay.
So I'll get with you as far as I'll see what I can get done through the Schoology and then follow up with you.
Okay.
All right.
All right, no problem. Okay.
Thank you so much. Some great resources. I enjoyed it.
Okay, wait a minute. One thing before you leave. A lot of these tutorials in here, is everybody listening to me? Please let me know you're listening. A lot of the things in these tutorials right here use the Mental Ray render engine that is no longer a part of 3D Max. All right? I haven't had a chance to remake the tutorials using the other new render engine in 3D Max, which is called Arnold. And we'll talk about rendering in a little bit when we come back. All right?
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Talk to you later. Bye. Okay, everybody.
Bye.
I will see you in an hour. Bye. And I'm not leaving. I'm just going to turn my camera off because I don't want to not be able to get back.